Today's devotion is called Your Name is in His Plan. And we are on day 250 of 365 days of walking through the Bible alphabetically in a year. And we're on September the 7th if you're following along the calendar day. And today is an exciting day. I love days like this because we are starting a brand new book. And so we're starting on the book of Numbers. And I want to know if you have ever read the book of Numbers. If you haven't, then now is your chance. So today's morning rinse, we are starting with Numbers 1 through 3. And the featured verse is Numbers 1:17. So Moses and Aaron took these men who had been designated by name. So I have to chuckle at myself because the first time that I read today's featured verse, my eyes read it to say destined by name instead of designated by name. And when I went back and I reread it for a second time thinking, oh my goodness, that is a great featured verse, I felt this kind of twinge of disappointment that it didn't say destined by name. And I have to admit that I was like, what? It didn't say destined by name. It said designated by name. But I like the word destined better, I guess. And so it felt, I don't know, it just feels a little more impactful or purposeful, I guess, in my mind. But that is where I was wrong. Whether the word is written as destined or designated or specified, as the NIV actually says, we can be assured that God took note of them and called them by name. So the book of Numbers is a book that helps us to see the side of God that is very orderly or systematic, and it's very intentional with details. And we see these qualities in Exodus as well when he reveals the design plan for Moses and Aaron on how to build the tabernacle. And in fact, God is a master mathematician, what I call. And isn't it funny how that there is a name of a book that's called Numbers? But he is a master mathematician. He's a master engineer. He's a master leader. And when reading the book of Numbers, we immediately see his orderly trait as he begins to instruct Moses and Aaron how to prepare the people to enter the promised land. So the leaders that Moses and Aaron designate by name play a big part in helping to prepare the people. This bigger plan included none other than taking a census. So they did that in chapter 1, verse 2. And then it also included them implementing the layout of their camping site. And it also included detailing where people stayed in chapter 2, verse 2. It also included assigning tasks of responsibility in how the tabernacle was managed. And we see all of this. I mean, God is orderly, God is detailed, and he desires us to be that as well, especially when we are preparing for our purpose. And a lot of times people will say, I'm not really all that organized, or I'm not really that way, or, I feel so stifled being organized. Well, God is a God of order. And, while it might not necessarily be our natural gifting to be orderly, there is something to be learned about this. And, even especially as we are preparing for our purpose in life, preparation, just as we studied the book of Nehemiah, we just finished the book of Nehemiah, and how preparation and how Nehemiah's business model helped us to prepare and build our ministry or build a business or whatever. Just as we studied in Nehemiah, preparation is vital to the success of our business plan. and God will show us how to do it. So as we read the book of Numbers, do not be tempted to skip over the details. Don't be tempted to this is not necessarily applicable. Don't be tempted like I was to view words as less significant than they really are. Instead, take note of the details and the fact that God is in it all. Even in all the numbers that are listed throughout the book, God had a purpose for listing all of it. The leaders mentioned in today's morning rinse had a purpose in the preparation. They were called out by name and set apart, and their names were in God's plan, just like yours is in God's plan, and just like mine is in God's plan. So let me read the featured verse again. So Moses and Aaron took these men who had been designated by name. God has called you by name. He has called me by name, which is why I titled today's devotion, Your Name is in His Plan. Your name is there. And so be encouraged. Be encouraged that God knows your name. And be excited about reading this book. While it can be detailed and while there's things in it that, you might be tempted to look over or skip over, or even like myself, I was a little disappointed that it didn't say destined, but it said designated. And I'm designated for a plan for God's kingdom. You are designated for God's plan in His kingdom. And so today's challenge to dig deeper is to self-reflect. Are you guilty of ever feeling insignificant in God's overall big plan? I know I have felt insignificant at times. And I would imagine that if you are listening or watching, that you've probably felt insignificant at one point or another in your life. So I want today for you to take note that God is orderly and that He is intentional in His plan. He's very intentional, and He knows who He selected and designated for specific things. Maybe you just got a new job and you're just not for sure, where you fit into the big picture. Well, He has designated your name to be a part of that plan and purpose for His kingdom. You never know who you're going to impact and who you're going to help build their faith even over time. You never know who's going to be saved because you are sitting in that seat at that job. And if you feel insignificant or you haven't been able to find a job, He has not forgotten you. Rest today knowing this and get excited for your future, because He has designated you to have a role in His kingdom and in His purpose. He has not forgotten you. He is a God of order, and you are part of that. You are part of that, and He has designated your name to be in the midst of the big plan for His kingdom. And I can't wait to read the book of Numbers and pull out some really cool things about this book. And so when you're pulling out your journal and you're having your evening reflection, did God say anything to you? Or did you feel anything or hear His voice in your heart? Did He speak to you today about your name in His plan? You as a person in His plan, being designated, because God is a God of order and He does not make mistakes. So you are a part of His plan. And I am so excited about that. So I want you to be encouraged and to be inspired and to understand that the book of Numbers is not just a book that's got a whole bunch of numbers listed. Yes, that is part of it, but there's a whole lot of nuggets involved in this book. And so I hope that you read it today and moving forward with our daily reading plan. So again, morning rinse today is Numbers 1 through 3. So Moses and Aaron took those men who had been designated by name. And I know that there are leaders that are in your life that are going to take you because you are designated by name to fill a specific role in God's kingdom. And you never know what that might be. It could be bigger than what you think. If you haven't gotten my devotional yet, the link is in the show notes. And please send this episode to somebody who might need to be encouraged, especially for those people who feel insignificant or who are not necessarily, for sure what their plan is and what their role is in God's kingdom. We might not know the full scope of our plan over the course of our lives, but God will use others as well as ourselves to put us into that plan and put that plan into motion. So until tomorrow, keep rinsing, reflecting, and repeating. God bless you.